Many resorted to violence. Simultaneously, scholars contributed to the problem. Whenever the government's legitimacy and faith were questioned, scholars were used to reinstate its right to the rulership. Regrettably, religious scholars never lead reform. They always fan extremism.
It is highly unusual to hear a former imam denounce religious scholars for contributing to extremism. And then even more unusual, he blamed Muslims in general for not contributing to a better world.
Muslims have become passive and stopped contributing to world civilization many centuries ago. There are no specific reasons for this. A number of historic, social, and human criteria piled to put an end to Islamic culture, which once was the main source of science to Europe and the whole world.
Mansour wants reform from both the ruling family and the clerics themselves. No wonder the Saudi government has banned this man from writing. But he is not banned from returning to Saudi Arabia.
My stay in the Emirates is only a transitional period and will end when I feel it would be more appropriate to go back to the kingdom. I am wishful of many changes before I choose to go back to Saudi. I'd like to see people more optimistic about the future, participate more in decision-making, choose their officials, and be more understanding. I also would like to see more transparency from the government, appreciation to people's right to know facts, and openness to reform. It may sound complex and dreamful, but not too much to ask.
What can anyone say about what is happening in the Gaza Strip? Just when you think things might get a little better, they get worse. As an Arab, I'm embarrassed about it. Arabs fighting Arabs, Hamas and Fatah. It's very difficult to find a voice of reason in the middle of all this, but I did. His name is Emad Al-Faluji, and I've been following his actions for the past several years. Currently, he is on the board of trustees at the New Palestine University. He used to be a member of Hamas, the militant group which does not recognize Israel.
I didn't join. I'm one of the founders of Hamas. It was an affiliate of the Islamic Brotherhood movement. And I was one who formed Izz-ad-Din al-Qassam Brigades while I was the head of Hamas. Izz-ad-Din Qassam Brigades was a security agency to assassinate informants and to protect the movement.
It didn't surprise me that he defends his past role as that of a resistance fighter, not an extremist.
I'm not against the Israelis because they are Jewish, but only because they are invaders. And that is my understanding of resistance. Resistance is to resist whoever abuses your rights, invades your land, and steals your freedom.
I find Emad Al-Faluji reasonable because he quit Hamas in the mid-1990s in order to participate in elections and open up a dialogue with those with whom he disagreed. Moderation, he says, does not mean giving up.
I warned them that boycotting the elections would be like committing suicide, because it would push Hamas to the side. But nobody believed me, so I had to participate in the election as an independent. And Mr. Yasser Arafat himself ordered the Fatah Party to support me to win in the elections.
To see him drive through the streets of Gaza in his BMW obscures the fact that he, like so many Palestinians, grew up poor in a refugee camp.
Al-Jabalia camp is known to be one of the poorest camps and one of the most crowded. Everyone who grew up there developed claustrophobia and was always missing their land and country. I will never forget the friends who died or who were jailed. I will never forget the miserable life we lived when we were little. I could be the youngest member to join the Islamic Brotherhood movement. I was 15, and my Islamic ideology started developing since then because of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. And I became at a young age responsible in the region of Al-Jabalia camp. After that, I went to the Soviet Union, and I was assigned to build an Islamic movement over there. Then I came back here to participate in the Intifada and was jailed in the Israeli prisons.
That was back in the late 1960s and early 70s. Now, 30 years later, despite having made a decent living, life for his children is no better due to the constant conflict and tension.
Now, one of my kids is 8 years old and knows what type of planes are flying, like the Apache and the F-16, and can tell you if this plane will shoot a missile or not. At this age, and he knows that. This is a big psychological problem. In other countries, if a child knows things like that, he would undergo psychological treatment. Everyone wishes that kids live a better life than theirs. We try hard to get our kids out of the depressing life that Israel imposes on our society. As a father, I don't want for my kids to go through what I have been through. 5 years in jail, the suppression, the interrogations. That's why I give an advice to the Israelis not to lose the next generation of Palestinians. Unfortunately, they don't listen to this advice, so they lost the new generation. The kids remember everything.
As a child, and like so many Arabs, he was taught not to accept other points of view, especially religious ones. In the Arab world, the other is never tolerated. This is the way we are taught, by our families and by our governments. It's very unproductive, but it's true. And regretfully, it's very Arabic.
They taught us in the Islamic school not to accept the other. The other was automatically considered to be against Islam. Whoever is not with us is wrong. This is a dangerous way of thinking, when you think that you are the only one who's right.
His friends say this kind of thinking makes Ahmad al-Faluji a different and courageous man.
If Hamas had listened carefully to Ahmad's suggestions, they would have been in a much better position by now. He told Hamas that Arafat's return to Palestine was the right moment to start participating in politics and have a tangible role. If they didn't ignore his recommendations, they would have saved the country a lot of space, struggle, and corruption.
Frustrated with Fatah and their corruption, Ahmad al-Faluji ran for office independently in 2006, and he lost. In an interview several years ago, Ahmad al-Faluji spoke about the need for democracy.
Do we need democracy? Yes, we do. Democracy is a way to educate and spread awareness among young people. Are elections necessary? Yes, they are. Do we need freedom of thinking? Yes, we do. Public opinion no longer believes the big slogans, but they ask about the details. When you talk about democracy, you will be asked, what have you done to reach democracy? Are you democratic in your home with your family? Do you believe in the women's rights to participate in politics? Will you accept defeat in an election? Do you agree with arresting people because of their political views? People want to know the details.
And he believes as well in the rule of a moderate Islam, which he says can coexist with democracy.
We don't want Taliban or Al-Qaeda's repressive models. I want the Islam that gives freedom to communities. Islam that accepts the others. Islam that accepts Westerners as humans. Islam that respects all religions. We want an open-minded Islam, the Islam that was founded by God, and not by others and their revenge policies.
أيها الإخوة الكرام أيها الإخوة المؤمنون سلاحنا.
But his dreams were never to happen. Hamas took his advice, ran in the elections in 2006 and won. But the government run by Hamas didn't work, and a so-called unity government between Hamas and Fatah produced only violence. Hamas insists on total rule by Islamic law.
There's a difference between Hamas and Fatah over the slogan. Islam is the solution. Hamas believes it's a religious phrase, meaning that Sharia law must be implemented. Fatah, on the other hand, even though it's a Muslim majority, it's a pragmatic, liberal, and secular group. It's not a religious group, yet believes Islam should be implemented in the daily life between